This. First of all, the fact that the president is pointing the blame at China when everybody else says it's Russia.
Well, based on what I've seen, I don't think there's any question but that it was Russia. And for the president to be once again so deceitful, to essentially, through Twitter, give a statement that Putin could not have said better himself, casting doubt on attribution, it just undermines our deterrent, to the degree we have any deterrent to what the Russians do. And, of course, it's an eerie echo of the president's other deceit when he also suggested when the Russians hacked the elections in 2016 that might have been China. When China does engage in bad acts, and they do, it also means that no one will take the president seriously if he correctly calls out China. So it's just uniformly destructive and deceitful and injurious, further injury to our national security.
Let me ask you how serious this attack is from what you know. What kind of threats might it pose to our national security, both in the short term and the long term?
Well, you know, it's extraordinary because so many of our agencies were penetrated, so many private sector companies all over the world. It will take weeks, months, it may even take years to understand the full scope of this. It's also going to take a long time to get the Russians out of these systems, and the economic losses for the private sector are going to be enormous. So it's very far-reaching. We don't yet know the full extent of the potential damage. We don't yet know whether this extends beyond unclassified to classified systems. But it's really quite breathtaking in scope. And it also means that we are going to have to considerably up our cyber defense game if we're going to prevent further attacks on the supply chain like this one.
Things like the electrical grid, the water supply, the nuclear safety and security, the nuclear codes, all these things I know are things, Congressman, that are of concern right now. It's been described as potentially leaving a backdoor access, which means presumably continuing to get information from our very secret and secure systems. Are you concerned about a backdoor access that continues?
Well, absolutely. And, you know, I think the Cybersecurity Agency has already said publicly that SolarWinds was not the only vulnerability, that they have detected other vulnerabilities from users who didn't use that version of SolarWinds. So we know that the Russians used multiple entry points. And that means that we need to figure out what all those entry points were, whether they have retained a presence in those systems. In some cases, that may mean burning down the whole system in order to make sure that when we rebuild it, they're not present. But in terms of critical infrastructure, it also means that if we can't detect that they're there, they may have prepared the battlefield such that they can take control of management systems of critical infrastructure should push ever come to shove. And obviously, that's a very dangerous prospect. It
has been suggested, just anecdotally, that Russia could wage a kind of war on the United States were it to want to without ever dropping a bomb because of what has happened.
Well, I do think we need to look at the totality of the Russian cyber actions, right? They hacked our Democratic Party and institutions. They've hacked think tanks. They started releasing stolen emails during the last presidential campaign, the 2016 campaign. They used their cyber means to set up false flag operations on social media, to divide Americans. And now this massive hack, this intelligence gathering, this economic damage, this preparing of the battlefield. You look at it in the totality, what the Russians are doing. Clearly, they weren't deterred in any way by this president. Their actions are only broadening, and we're going to both have to respond and deter, but we're going to also have to think about how do we protect our supply chain, and that is a very hard problem to solve.
Lastly on this, before I move on, do you get a sense that after January 20th, in terms of deterrence of this kind of future activity, do you think that a President Joe Biden will be one-upping President Trump in terms of keeping this nation safe relative to Russia?
Well, he doesn't have to do much to one-up President Trump on this. If he did anything, it would one-up President Trump. But yes, you know, he will establish a deterrent. And in fact, I think the reason why the Russians didn't involve themselves more in the 2020 election, they were involved, but to a certain point, is because they realized that Joe Biden might very well win, and there would be a heavy price to pay If they were sure Donald Trump would win, it would have been a very different story. So, yes, Biden will work hard to reestablish deterrence. He's also going to have to make a major investment, and along with Congress, in our cyber defenses. And I think we can expect all that to take place as soon as he leaves the starting gate.
Congressman, speaking of winning, the Electoral College cast their votes last week, but that has not stopped the president and his crusade against the results. In fact, President Trump urging his followers on Twitter to take to the streets for a, quote, big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there will be wild. Of course, that is the day that Congress is set to count electoral votes for president and then validate the election. Is there any chance, sir, that Joe Biden will not be validated again as the winner of this election?
There's no chance of that. What there is a chance of is if the president essentially urges his supporters to descend on the Congress on January 6th, that it could cause civil disturbances. What's more, the act of challenging the result in Congress will fail, but it will do another body blow to our democracy. All of this is doing long-term damage to our country. The president, through his actions, is creating a permanent class of aggrieved citizens who believe that their election was stolen when it wasn't. And, I'll say this, too. If the president succeeds with Tommy Tuberville in challenging the result in Congress, it will fail, but it will not only hurt the country, it will also hurt the Republicans in the Senate who will be forced to vote either their loyalty to the president or their loyalty to the Constitution. That's not a position McConnell wants to put his members in because too many of them have failed that test already. Absolutely.
A number of new reports are detailing the lengths to which the president was reportedly willing to go in his efforts to overturn the election results. You heard that NBC has just confirmed some of these reports. But I want to play for you some advice that Trump's former national security advisor and recently pardoned Michael Flynn has for him. Let's take a look.
He could order within the swing states. If he wanted to, he could take military capabilities and he could place them in those states and basically rerun an election in each of those states. I mean, it's not unprecedented. I mean, these people out there talking about martial law, it's like it's something that we've never done. Martial law has been instituted 64 times.
So taking what Michael Flynn says there, and then the president tweeting martial law equals fake news, can you, sir, make any sense of this? Is there any chance that the president would try to follow the advice of his former national security advisor? And what would that even look like?
Well, first of all, I have to say I shudder every time I see Michael Flynn to think that that man was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Because what he is just saying is perfectly normal, perfectly ordinary, done 60 some odd times in history, is a military coup. That's what he's talking about. I have resisted using the word coup to describe these efforts by Trump to make these bogus lawsuits and make these bogus claims. But what Flynn is talking about is a military coup. And that may have been done 60 times in history, but it's been done by dictators around the world, not here in the United States. Could the president do it? Look, I don't think the people around the president are going to go along with it. It would fail, but again, it would be such an additional destructive blow to our democracy. The fact that they're even entertaining this is so beyond the pale. But again, this is a man who has no moral compass. He will do the length and breadth of what people let him get away with. Sadly, he has had all too many enablers in his own administration and in the Republicans in Congress, and that's what even breeds this kind of reckless talk.
31 days to go, sir. Do you think after the inauguration on January 20th that this kind of disruption in the air will continue?
Well, I have no doubt that Trump will continue his hectoring from the sidelines. I do hope that we all tune him out, that in Congress, in the press, that we don't carry his tweets and utterances. It will carry on, though, because he's got a fortune he's raised since the election. He'll use that money to continue to sow discord. But we need to do our best to focus on the future, to let the new president and vice president have an opportunity to succeed, to address the challenges facing the country. We're in the middle of a terrible and deadly pandemic. That needs to be the top priority for all Americans. And part of that is going to mean tuning out this dangerous nonsense from soon-to-be former President Donald Trump.
And tuning in to the likes of you, California Congressman Adam Schiff. Thank you so much. It's awfully good to see you, my friend. Happy holidays.